So we're going to talk about the future of retail for connected devices and how IoT is being used in that space. As a kind of a premise for this discussion, I kind of just want to put out there that there's this belief that retail is broken and that it doesn't work, particularly for some of the newer connected products that we're seeing. And in fact, a significant number of connected products are actually sold online instead of at traditional retail. So how does this affect the connected kitchen and how we can sell the connected kitchen? I'm Richard Gunther. I am a product and project management consultant, and I like to look at things from an experience perspective. And I'm here with Vibhu Norby from Beta, the CEO and co-founder of Beta. That's a company that's really kind of turning retail on its side a little bit. And I'll ask Vibhu to introduce himself a little bit and tell us a little bit about his background.
Cool. So for the last 5 years, I've been the founder and CEO of Beta. And if you've been to one of our stores, please raise your hand. Okay, well that's a pretty healthy percentage. If you haven't been, you don't have a good excuse. There's one like 20, 30 minutes away from here at University Village in Seattle. It's one of our first stores. It's really nice. So we'll have by end of this year we haven't announced all these stores yet, but we'll have 25 Beta stores across the U.S. I know we have some Japanese visitors in the room. We'll be in Tokyo next year. We'll be in Dubai in December this year. We haven't announced that yet. We're going international. We also, this summer, announced that we had acquired Toys R Us brand. So we are relaunching Toys R Us in the U.S. Has nothing to do with the connected kitchen, but it is fun. Since the very first day we opened, we've always sold the connected kitchen. It's a category that's always had a lot of innovation, and every year there's a new mousetrap. There's something else that somebody thinks is a better way to cook. And before that, I was at Nest, and my co-founders all came from Nest, the thermostat company, and we got the idea for Beta from our time there.
Fantastic. So I'd like to just talk about this idea of retail supposedly failing. And I say supposedly because we know that there's success out there. Apple is doing spectacularly in retail, while so many other companies aren't. I listened to a localized podcast that talks about what's going on in my community, and just this past Friday, they announced 2 or 3 retailers in the area that were closing down. And this is a more and more common story, either local businesses or even national chains. And so it can't all just be that Amazon's now selling to everybody and they're ruining everything. It can't be that, right? Like, it's more complicated, isn't it?
It is really complicated. So I'll give you a few stats. So you mentioned stores closing down. I think of the measurable store closures, probably 10,000 will close this year. The remarkable thing, though, about Amazon is that if you look at the total sales volume in the U.S., like total retail economic output, since the time that Amazon came on the scene and today, what you'll see is that almost entirely e-commerce has been additive. So people are buying more stuff than they used to. They're just buying some things on Amazon. They're buying some things in the store. And the reason that it's been so disruptive is the growth rate of e-commerce is very, very high, but physical retail continues to grow at about inflation. It's growing 2 to 3% a year, which, if it were the case that Amazon was coming in and taking all this market share, then you wouldn't see that. You would see the decline of sales, but that has not been the case. Now, what has happened, though, that is very clear, is that people are walking into stores and they're not behaving the way that they did when the idea of a big box store first came about. They're looking at a bunch of things, and every time they're actually interested in something, they have everyone shops. If you go into a store today, you'll see what I mean, and everyone has their phone in their hand. If you go to a grocery store, everyone has their phone in their hand. They're checking prices. They're looking at their recipe list. They're trying to figure out whether they actually want to buy this here or they want to go talk to someone else and buy it online. And that didn't used to happen, obviously. We didn't have phones. So people, I think today you see this very distinct behavior where people are shopping in stores, but they're not always buying in the same place they discover. And that has been very, very disruptive to retailers. And this is why we ended up starting beta, but we wanted to separate out those two ideas. Like, we don't think that the store needs to be a place that also has the inventory and does all the transactions. We think that's going to happen across a wide range of channels.
So is that happening exclusively because of price pressure, or is there more to it than that? I mean, in my experience, I go to Best Buy because I need something right away.
You need an HDMI cable.
And they have it.
Yeah.
I don't, and I may go to see or try larger items, but I don't expect to learn anything from anyone that works there.
Yeah, we have one of the most amazing things about we have a policy at Beta. Every corporate employee has to work at least 2 full days a year in the store, and most of our employees do that during the holidays when it's really busy. And what's amazing about the modern consumer that walks into our store is that they know so much already.
Right.
That wasn't the case before. They're coming in and saying, "Oh yeah, I've seen this thing. I know about let's talk about the Thermomix, one of our partners." And people will come in, they'll have seen the videos, they'll have seen someone talking about it, and they just know a lot about it, but they are not ready to click buy without having, it's an expensive product. They're not ready to click buy without getting a demonstration or seeing the physical size of it. They want to know if it's going to be able to fit on their counter. But our unique take as a retailer is that we put no pressure on you to walk out of the store with that product. We think and we know that you're going to probably go back to the brand's website, you're going to go to Amazon, or go somewhere else to transact.
So everybody can't be doing poorly at this. I mentioned Apple as an example. Apple has, for the most part, largely positive experiences for customers in their stores, and they're doing well. Who else do you think is kind of doing it right? Are there other companies out there that are mixing it up, that are getting past the limitations of some of the older big box brands?
So that's a hard question, because there are two types of retail. There's the retail of pharmacies and grocery stores, things that you need right now, and there's the retail of I'm out and about in University Village, I'm getting food, and now I'm going to go and walk and see what else is there. And for the most part, the transaction-focused retail, the Target, the Safeways, that's been a really challenging segment of retail. On the desire side, like Nike has been doing really, really well. And but the commonalities that the ones that are doing well have, and the ones that are not doing well have, are their business model. Apple is a direct-to-consumer brand. We don't think of them that way, but they, from day one of Apple Store, they never cared about where you bought the product, and so they really focused the store on how engaging it was and how good of an experience it was. Apple is still I think more than 50% of iPhones are bought outside of the Apple Store. But we all when we think of Apple, we think of their stores. So I think Nike luxury is hanging in there. You see Glacier, some of these newer startups who are doing retail. I mean, they're Rothy's. Their volumes are out of control inside their stores. They have so much traffic. There's lots of examples. I just wouldn't look at multi-brand. I think they've been disastrous.
Okay, so let's talk about Beta. What is it about Beta that's different from other retailers? Talk a little bit about how your model is different than, say, walking into, I don't know, like some other small gadget store that you might find on the street, or even a big box retailer for that matter.
For the customer experience, it's drastically different. So there's no shelving. Everything's on the same horizontal plane. We designed the store so that when you walk in, you can see everything that's there from the entrance. Everything is out of the box and a real working prototype. There's no plastic demo units.
No annoying plastic mock-ups. Like, don't you love that when you go to Best Buy and you go to buy a phone and it's a plastic toy of the actual phone with a sticker of what the screen would look like? Why would I ever buy a phone?
And a security device attached to the back.
Right. Don't steal this fake phone.
Yeah. Yeah, and no, so we I think we did what anyone would do starting a store today. We take the products out, we show people how they work, but the biggest difference is on the business model side. So a typical retailer will use their purchasing power leverage to get you to sell in your product at a as low a price as they can get away with, and then they mark it up, and then when they sell the unit, they make money, and that's it. And like I said, that model really breaks when customers walk into the store, learn about the Breville oven, and then go on Amazon and buy it. Like, okay, well, we just showed the product to the customer, we hired the people, we got the lease, we built up the space, and we did our job of getting someone to learn about this product, but we didn't get paid for it. So this happens over and over and over again. And the reason this happens, so electronics is, of all of the industries, is the most, it's the most, as on a percentage basis, like the most electronics are sold online of any other category. So today we're already living in a world where like 60,
majority, isn't it?
Yeah, like 60 to 70% of electronics are bought online today. And I'll say something about connected kitchen, because I think that this is a crossover category where it's both electronics and it's both appliances. And so it's, I think for big retailers, it's tricky to figure out where to even put them in their store sometimes. But we said, look, we know people are going to showroom us, and why don't we focus, how can we focus our energy on just giving that customer the experience, and again, not caring where they ended up buying. So what we do is we introduce a model called Retail as a Service, and essentially brands subscribe to space. So the bigger your product is, the more you pay. And it just models our business model as a retailer. We have staff, we have a lease. Those have a fixed cost per month. We split up the store into displays, and then we ask brands to pay for their contribution. So this model, and the important thing is we take inventory, but we give the brand 100% of the sales, dollar for dollar. This totally changes the way that brands can use the space. We can work with all kinds of different business models. But most importantly, the customer walks in, doesn't feel pressure. They're just there to experience and to get educated about what's happening. So we introduced this model, and it used to be really unique because we were the first people to do it. And now, over the last year and a half or so, you've seen basically every major retailer is testing a version of this in their stores now. Some of them we're actually powering with our software. And then you see probably 30 different multi-brand retail startups that are employing this model. But this is definitely the way that retail is going to change the most for brands, that you're going to stop getting wholesale orders in the next probably decade.
So now you mentioned connected kitchen, and I know that you have connected kitchen products. Your inventory is the wrong word, but your product lineup changes pretty regularly. Over the course of time that you've been around, like what percentage of kitchen products do you have in the mix usually?
It varies depending on the store. We have a few stores where we built some more infrastructure for food products. Like our Austin store has a plumbing and a kitchen, like a kitchen area. We have about 7 stores that have a connected kitchen, like dedicated space. That's a partnership with Google today. I looked at some of the data from kitchen versus other smart home appliances. So the other thing that I failed to mention about our business model is when you pay for your subscription, we layer on the most advanced retail analytics system on top of that.
When the product manufacturer?
As a product manufacturer. So the brand, we give back data on how many people see their product, how many people engage with it, how many people get a demo, what kinds of customers those are, what their income is, their home ownership rates, things like that help them basically to adjust the experience. So when we looked at, just this morning was looking at this data, if you look at connected kitchen versus the rest of the smart home products in our store, so the biggest difference I saw was connected kitchen is about twice as expensive as the average. Like the average kitchen product is twice as expensive as the average typical smart home product, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's not surprising, probably.
Yeah. Conversion rate's about 5% from a demo. Typical connected home was about 4.5% in store from a demo.
Store.
Yep. So when someone gets a demo of a product, how often do they buy? The biggest difference so in terms of impressions, people are about 25% more likely to be interested in a connected kitchen device versus a typical smart home device, but 10% less likely to want a demo. What it says is basically people are interested in the idea. They really like finding out about it. Then once they learn a little bit more, they're a little scared, and they're not sure that they want to go through. And a lot of these connected kitchen product demos are very long.
Right. Like even if you're just
going to
food prep, say make a piece of toast with your June oven or something, which is, by the way, probably the best, easiest way to demonstrate a June oven. It figures out that it's toast. I love it.
But it's hard. It's hard to do. Even for us. Time. Yeah, even for us as a retailer, it's really hard. There's a lot of legal issues with demonstrating food that we were talking about. We have this. I won't say the name of this. We have a new connected kitchen product coming in, and they really wanted to do demos in our stores, and we're very excited about doing that. But my general counsel said, "Hey, look, if someone gets sick in our store because we don't have a food permit in the store, right? Then that's really on us, not on the company and on the brand. And I think this is partly why, if you look at how most retailers do food, like kitchen appliance demos, they ask the company to come in and do it themselves to limit their liability there. So this has been a tough category to figure out how to do right. I think sometime in the next year we'll probably launch a dedicated store just for kitchen appliances and food preparation. And we'll get the permitting. We'll hire people that are like food grade associates. Food grade associates, is that a thing? People that can prepare food and like we'll have all the proper sanitation and everything required. Yeah.
So you're doing experiential retail, but you mentioned other companies that might be doing food demos. Williams-Sonoma obviously comes to mind. They almost always have some sort of demo going each day. Sur La Table, I think, is another company that does that. And those are highly experiential retail locations that do pretty well. There are others that have failed in this effort. Perch is probably the poster child example, unfortunately. Had an incredibly immersive experience, but it wasn't something that they could sustain. And similarly, Sears Holdings had a brand called The Great Indoors that was also set up as a demo experience for home products, and you could touch and feel and open everything, and they did demonstrations. So this is, having this experiential space for people is difficult. It's not an easy thing to maintain.
For sure. The Sur La Table and Williams-Sonoma are very small chains, actually. You don't have a really mass dedicated kitchen retailer. Most people still probably buy their appliances from Macy's and Bed Bath & Beyond and Kohl's. I think part of the reason why is...
You're talking about countertop appliances.
Countertop appliances, yeah. But and then for the bigger appliances, Home Depot and some of the mass home improvement. But the interesting thing is that if you are, and I'm blanking on, what was the retailer you just mentioned?
The Great Indoors or...
Perch? Yeah, I'm so sad about Perch. They had some of the best.
Yeah.
They didn't have a model.
Some of the best. There was no economic model there. I think for the typical, even if you were in all of the kitchen-specific stores, it'd be very hard to build a very large business as a startup appliance maker or countertop appliance maker. But yeah, I don't. What was the question? I don't remember. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. No, it's difficult. I'm just
Yeah.
talking about it. It's difficult, but it's
very hard.
So one of the things that you talked about was how you're sharing data. How are you getting that data? Like how you're using IoT in your stores to gather data that you can share as a product of value to the manufacturers. How's that work?
Yeah, so basically we have computer vision and cameras. So our average store is probably about the size of this room, and in a space like this, we'll have 150 cameras, and just using computer vision, machine vision, we're doing very basic things to understand, not with personal data attached, but anonymize information aggregate information about how people are shopping. And then we have, we talked about this on the phone, as a customer is talking to one of our beta testers, what we call our staff, the beta tester is oftentimes logging information about that interaction on the displays that we have next to the product. So every product in our store has a display next to it that has information about the product, but it's also a gesture-based data capture system to feed information back, so we don't lose the attention of the customer when we're talking to them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I mean, it's funny. I was in the Amazon Go store again. If you're in Seattle, if you're not from this area, you haven't been in the Amazon Go store, download the app, go to the Amazon Go store. It's amazing. You feel like you're stealing stuff, but it's the same concept where there are cameras everywhere watching what you're doing, and they have it tuned so much that they know exactly what's in your bag when you leave, and you get a bill for it later. It's phenomenal.
You can do this at Safeway too. You just
Not my Safeway.
You won't get charged for it. I'm just kidding. I don't endorse that statement.
So we have about 3 minutes left, and I wanted to ask, we have a lightning round question at the end here. Hopefully you're prepared for that. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about the retail as a service platform. So not only are you doing this for beta stores, but then everything that we've just talked about, then you can then help a company with if they want to open their own store or a kiosk, or how does that work? Yeah, well,
every retailer we mentioned today, has come, their CEO, their team has come to our stores, and their first question they have is hey, why don't we have all these things in our stores? And then they go back to their merchants, and their merchants are well, we have this relationship with this big supplier, and so, can't really introduce this company here, or, it's too expensive. I don't think our customer's going to want it. So when they ask us, well, how do we do it? And we just tell them our model. They've all sort of expressed interest in trying this out. And of course, as with anything in retail, it takes 3, 4, 5 years to get anything done.
Right.
So
big companies, they're not going to move that fast.
So most retailers have been thinking about this for 4 or 5 years now, and now they're just starting to roll out programs that are more startup friendly. We started to see this happening, and we offered up because we built this platform that already manages all the space in this kind of program. Some of them have chosen to do it with us. Some of them have chosen not to do it with us. But I think the good news is that you will see retail becoming more accessible for startups. The bad news is that you can't necessarily teach an old dog new tricks.
Understood. But I'm really happy that we're getting Toys R Us back. That's very exciting. All right, lightning round. In 5 or fewer words, what's one main thing that you feel like retailers are doing wrong that needs to be corrected for the connected kitchen? I'm going to seed this with my own answer first. Screwed down plastic mock-ups suck.
I would say focus on education, not sales. That's exactly 5 words.
Nicely done.
But it really is the difference for a small company. You cannot. I don't know what everyone here is making, but I walked around the floor here and saw some of the amazing things entrepreneurs are making today in the space, and these are complicated products.
Yep.
And if you put it on the shelf at any of the retailers we mentioned, people are not going to buy it. They're going to walk past it. And so when you go into retail, just think about that. Like, what would you need to do to not just get attention, but to actually educate someone on the complicated product that you've made? And
Very good.
happy to help with that, but it's
I like
tough.
that. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
guys. Appreciate
thank
the
all
time.
of you.